Where are we at? Electrically safe work condition. So we have, there's an 8-step process in NFPA 70E. It's outlined in your handout. We're going to talk through each one of these steps in some detail, and then I'm going to show you some pictures of some PPE type of things, and that'll wrap up our time together. I would like to end with electrically safe work condition, because this electrically safe work condition is the priority for electrical safety. It's the only way we can eliminate that electrical hazard is to isolate and prove it with our meter that it's gone. The only way we can do it. So I'm going to I'll draw a picture on my whiteboard and we'll kind of talk through some of these things. Number one, we have to figure out where the power is coming from. What are the possible sources? So electricians are supposed to label on things if they're fed from multiple things. So if you've got a 480 feeder, 120 volt control voltage thing, they're supposed to be labeled to show on the front of the panel that you got 2 sources. Do they always do that? No. Trust no one, verify everything. You can find that information. A lot of times you're going to see it on newer stuff, especially. They're going to label on it with a little tag that says fed from panel number A breaker 1/3/5. So you got a place to go. Again, when you shut that breaker off, you still, when you open the panel up, need to verify that the power's gone. You trust no one, verify everything. Sometimes that labeling might not be on there. I encourage you to get it on there. Once you figure it out, for your own sake, take a dry erase marker. If you've been in some of your plants where I've been, you'll see remnants of dry erase marker marks on some of your electrical gear. Sometimes people wig out at me because they think I'm writing with a permanent marker. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing writing on my electrical stuff with all that marker stuff? I'm like, oh, hold on, back the bus up. It's dry erase. Don't worry about it. Use a dry erase marker if you need to. Write that stuff out on there so you can kind of don't have to remember it as much. Sometimes none of that stuff you're on, you got to talk to a contractor. You might have to talk to who you're working with. You might have plant drawings. I showed you what those single line drawings look like. You're going to get these type of things available to you. Ask for them if you don't. Figure out where this stuff is. Figure out where these things are fed from. Part of your job. You got to know where it's coming from. You cannot isolate things. So in a general sense, my instinct tells me that you all, do you or do you not go to the upstream feeder or disconnect or breaker to isolate things, or are you generally just doing it with the disconnect that's on your machine itself? What do you got?
We're not allowed to go into the customer's facility to do any disconnection, so we just use our own disconnect.
Okay, so then that by definition means the top of that disconnect is still always energized, right? Yeah,
yes.
So you always have power there. Yeah. Yep. So that in and of itself. So would you believe it that the number one cause of arc flash is opening a cover on something? So even though you have the thing shut off, you still have power up on top. And I've heard all kinds of stories of things bouncing around or whatever the case is. So you're supposed to be dressed for that hazard. But we got to know where the power is coming from. Number 2 is, before we go and shut the power off on that disconnect, we're better off to shut off the process first. So if you think about your own, like you're working in your garage at home and you're like, I'm using a shop vac. Shop vac is a good example because it's a decent sized draw on the motor. If I'm running my shop vac and I have it plugged into a 120 volt wall receptacle and I don't shut the shop vac off, when I pull that, if I just go and unplug it while it's running, I'm going to get sparking and arcing on that plug, correct? It always does. But if we shut the motor off and go and pull the plug, we don't get sparking and arcing. Just a general thing. So you're better off, even though most of your stuff is probably rated for disconnect, underload, all that kind of stuff, they're always, from just a general perspective, better off to shut things down in an organized process before opening stuff up. Number 3, when you can do it, open up something, look and see if the disconnect is disconnected. This case here probably doesn't apply to you guys because most of your stuff is circuit breakers in that upper right-hand corner. So it is what it is. But this is right out of NFPA 70E. Number 4 is deal with stored electrical energy. So a lot of times you are servicing VFDs. That was a real common thing that you had on the electrical task that you're actually doing. You have to deal with that capacitor in there, for instance. Or you might have some kind of UPS system that's providing control power or UPS on your control power part of things. You might have to deal with that. You could have that stored electrical energy coming from somewhere. Yeah. VFDs, batteries. You could have some induced voltage. We talked about that fan example where the building was pressurized. Yeah, you could have a pump somewhere that has pressure on some sort of pressure vessel. It's backfeeding or pushing through that. Could have you could have parallel wire circuits inside of a cable tray somehow where yours is shut off and the other one's running. You could have backfeed induced voltage, kind of the electric fence example I gave you earlier. Number 5, blocker release stored non-electrical energy. So that means that other parts of lockout tagout, right? All those suspended loads, hydraulic, air compressed, you got to get all the other stuff, make sure you're dealing with that. In a lot of cases, if you're doing a customer site, you got to rely on your customer to do that because that might not be an area of expertise for yourself even. Number 6, we finally get to the point of putting our lock on there. That's where lockout tagout happens. So you guys all have that. I think most of you have that kind of stuff with you. Just as kind of a point of reflection, you look at these guys here. These guys here are dressed in what maximum PPE level in calories per square centimeter are these guys dressed in? Magnify this guy right there. What's the max that these guys can possibly be? In calories. What do you guys think? What's missing out of the picture?
Balaclava is missing, so they would.
There you go. Yep, good job. They're missing Old Smelly. When you don't have Old Smelly on, your limitation when you have this arc flash setup on, your limitation would be at 4 calories max. Because it ends up being at 4 calories, the arc flash boundary is beyond 4 calories, the arc flash boundary gets beyond the back of your head. You got to have some kind of protection back there. Incidentally, I was at a customer location one time. The reason we call these things, oh, what happened there? Hang on, let me get back to where I was at. Oh, that blew up on me. Never had that happen before. Passed it up. Where'd it go? There it is. I was at a customer location before. My brother and I were working with him. It was 104 degrees out, and the electrician was wearing one of those balaclavas. We were opening up MCC buckets. He was sweating his butt off, and it was hot and miserable. Next day, he shows up, and my brother John goes, "Hey, did you bring home your balaclava and run it through the wash?" And he just gets this sick look on his face. He goes, "Nope." He didn't even hang the thing out to dry. He pulled it out of his bag. It was still moist yet from the day before. He pulled it on and went to work. It's so gross. He's like, "Screw you guys." Hey, buddy, we're just going to stay back here and use Zoom on our camera. We're just give you your distance. You kind of stink today. Pretty brutal. Yeah. So yeah, lockout tagout, use your lockout tagout devices and training that you normally do. Number 7, we're going to spend some time on right now. So number 7 is test it with your meter before you touch it. So I'm going to change to my other camera. And we're going to say, what does that mean? I think it's my other camera. All right. So what does this mean? So if you think about that control panel I looked at before. We have our big control panel. Changing out a relay right here. And my plan is I need to establish an electrically safe work condition on that relay before motor contactor before I change it out. Normal job for you guys? I think so. Something like it, right? So if I'm going to go up here right now, I've got my disconnect. We got our feeder coming in there. And we got our branch circuit coming over here. And I've got this shut off. Because we got to step number 6 and I've got it locked out. Now, step number 7 says you have to do a live dead live test with your meter to verify the power is out. Does that mean I can use one of these things? Can I use one of these things in this process?
That's a Widowmaker.
A Widowmaker, there you go. Yeah, there was a guy I had in training one time, and he kept arguing with me about this. So if you answer a question on any test I give you where you say this is a legitimate thing to use to establish an electrically safe work condition, and if you answer true to that question, I will fail you. Is that clear? You will fail this class. You're going to sit with me for another 8 hours on a future date to be planned. This is not what we're using. I had a guy argue with me, and other people in the class told me one time, he said, well, why don't you punch him in the face a few times and we'll all sign an affidavit saying he tripped and fell. Yeah, it's a bad deal. Don't be using it. So now we got to use our meter to verify that this area has no power. How do we do that? We're going to call it L1, L2, L3. We got